In the next set of lessons, we're going to be looking through Document Object Model, and this is also known as the DOM. So we're going to be looking at what the DOM is and how it works within JavaScript. So the DOM and HTML together allow us to access any one of the elements within our HTML page, and using JavaScript we're able to manipulate those elements, update them, create interaction, and as well get content from any one of the elements within our HTML code. Essentially, what the DOM does is it makes it really easy to access HTML elements. So let's open up our editors and we'll take a look at the DOM. So what I've got here is a really basic website, and I did need to create some HTML code for this set of lessons because we do need to have something to interact with. So I've created a very basic web page. It's just rendered out here on the right hand side, and I'm also going to be using the Google Chrome DevTools. So we can open that up on Windows. We can press Ctrl-Shift-I and open those up. So this is also available for Macs. So as long as you're using Chrome, you have access to DevTools. Open up our DevTools. Maybe I'll make this bigger. When we open up our DevTools, we see that initially here under Elements, we've got all of the source code that we're looking at within our web page. But we also have our sources here, so we can get some more information about the source and what's included within the resources of the code. Going back into Elements, so for this example here, I'm just going to have to drag it out a little bit, and we can see that we've got styles computed, so we've got our box model for CSS, we've got event listeners. So these are actually going to be DOM objects. So what it's going to be doing is actually listening. So if we have any event listeners set up in JavaScript, we'll see them there. We also have these DOM breakpoints, and we have properties. And when you open up properties, such as we open up the HTML, we've got a whole bunch of information here. So we've got everything from the HTML, the inner HTML, inner text. We've got the namespace URI. We've got just a whole bunch of event listeners here and triggers. We've got our outer HTML and so on. So we've got a lot of information that we have access to. And essentially this is what we look at when we access the DOM. And what the DOM does is it allows us to get access to elements within the web page. And the DOM is actually loaded when the web page loads. And it's the browser that creates the DOM. It creates all of the web elements as an object and breaks them apart in an easy to manage and access model, which is the DOM. And essentially it's like a tree construction. So it's a construction of multiple objects with hierarchy. So starting at the top with the HTML, so starting with our first element and working all the way down. So these, the head, the body, are just beneath HTML, and we can work all the way down and access any one of the objects within the DOM that's available. Each one of these elements has its own set of properties. So when we open this up in DevTools, we can see whenever we're clicking on button 1, we've got properties there, and it's got its own set of properties, so its own event handlers, it's got its own inner HTML, inner text, and just a whole bunch of information here that we have access to. And for further definition about the DOM, there's one at Wikipedia here, and it also gives you an illustration here of the way the DOM works. So we've got the window as the outer container. So this is also the WOM, window object model, and this is where, when we're writing JavaScript alerts, this is where all of those functions sit, and history, location. But then when it comes to the DOM, so this is actually the web page and content within that web page itself. So we've got some examples here of links, anchors, forms, and a whole bunch of different elements. So let's open up our editor, and what I want to do first is I want to just list out the DOM in the console. So we're going to use console log, but we're going to use console dir. So this is going to give us a directory listing of everything that's contained within the document. So again, this is that document object, and when we go out and we refresh the page, open up our console, we see that we've got a whole breakdown of all of the contents of the document, so including the body, and then we can go down from there and we can select any one of the elements. We've got children, and then we've got all the way down, so all the ancestors and descendants that are available, and we have access to them as we navigate through and select elements that we want to apply JavaScript and interactions to. So I'm going to be showing you how to do that in the upcoming lessons, and I just simply want to introduce what the DOM is, how you can get access to DOM, and what you can see within the DOM itself when you're using DevTools. So in the next lesson, we're going to start interacting with the DOM and creating some interactive JavaScript. So that's coming up in the next lesson.